Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You grab your phone, open Amazon, and discover that someone just bought a book with your name on it. A few hours later, another sale appears, then another. Not because you're shipping products, not because you're working with clients, not because you're trading your time for money, but because something you created is working while you're not. Now, most people hear this and immediately think, that sounds impossible. But here's the interesting part. The impossible part isn't making the sale. The impossible part is getting started, because almost everyone has thought about writing a book at least once. Maybe it's a story they've always wanted to tell, maybe it's knowledge they've collected over the years, or maybe it's simply the idea of creating something that lasts. But very few people ever do it. And the reason might surprise you. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. Most people fail because they're overwhelmed. Think about everything that goes into publishing a book. You need an idea, you need a structure, you need characters, you need chapters, you need editing, you need formatting, you need publishing. And suddenly, what started as an exciting idea feels like climbing a mountain. So people tell themselves something dangerous. I'll start next month. Then next month becomes next year, and next year becomes someday, and someday becomes never. That's how dreams quietly disappear. Not because people aren't capable, but because complexity kills momentum. And momentum is everything. The truth is, most people spend years consuming content about success, watching videos, reading posts, listening to podcasts, but they never build anything of their own. They become experts at watching, but beginners at creating. And that's the real difference between creators and consumers. Creators build assets, consumers consume assets. One group creates opportunities, the other waits for them. Now here's where things get interesting, because for decades, creating a book required enormous amounts of time, months of planning, months of writing, months of editing, and for many people, that barrier was simply too high. But then something happened. A technology arrived that completely changed the conversation. A technology that made millions of people ask a new question. What if creating a book didn't have to take months anymore? And that's exactly where our story begins. For years, the publishing world followed the same rules. If you wanted to publish a book, you needed time, a lot of time. You had to brainstorm ideas, create outlines, develop characters, write chapters, edit mistakes, rewrite entire sections, and sometimes, after months of work, you'd still never finish. That's why most people stayed on the sidelines. Not because they lacked ambition, because the process felt too big, too slow, too complicated. Then something happened. Artificial intelligence entered the picture, and suddenly, the impossible started looking possible. People could generate ideas in seconds, create outlines in minutes, research topics faster than ever, and draft content at a speed that would have sounded crazy just a few years ago. For the first time, a single person could accomplish work that previously required an entire team. And naturally, people got excited, really excited. Some even believed AI would completely solve the publishing problem. But they were wrong, because AI created a new problem, a different problem, a problem most beginners never see coming. You see, having a powerful tool doesn't automatically create great results. Think about it. Giving someone a professional camera doesn't make them a filmmaker. Giving someone a piano doesn't make them a musician. And giving someone AI doesn't make them an author. The tool became easier, but the process was still confusing. Many people started generating content, but the content lacked direction. Stories became repetitive. Characters felt robotic. Plots went nowhere. And readers noticed. Fast. That's when successful creators realized something important. The real advantage wasn't AI. The real advantage was knowing how to use AI correctly. Because tools don't create outcomes, systems do. And that's where the biggest opportunity began to emerge. While everyone else was asking, what's the best AI tool? A smaller group started asking, what's the best system? And that single question changed everything. Because systems eliminate confusion. Systems create consistency. Systems make progress predictable. Instead of staring at a blank page wondering what to do next, you simply follow the next step, one step, then another, until eventually, you have something most people never create. A finished product. And that's exactly why some people are publishing faster than ever before, while others remain stuck in endless planning mode. But here's the crazy part. The people winning today aren't always the most talented. In many cases, they're simply following better systems. And once you understand why, you'll never look at publishing the same way again. Because in the next part, we're going to uncover a truth that most people completely ignore. Why systems beat talent almost every single time. Let's imagine two people. The first person is incredibly talented, creative, intelligent, full of ideas. But every time they start something, they get distracted. They change directions, they overthink, they endlessly search for more information, and they rarely finish what they start. Now imagine a second person. Average skills, average experience, nothing extraordinary. But they follow a proven system every single day. step by step, without overcomplicating things, without constantly changing strategies, without chasing every new trend. Now here's the question. Who do you think succeeds first? Most people want to believe it's the talented person, but in reality, it's usually the person with the better system. Because talent creates potential, systems create results, and results are what actually matter. Think about professional athletes. They don't wake up every morning wondering what to do. They follow systems. Think about successful businesses. They don't rely on random luck, they rely on systems. Think about pilots flying airplanes. They don't trust memory, they follow systems. The same principle applies to publishing. The biggest reason most people fail isn't a lack of intelligence, it's decision fatigue. Every day they ask themselves, what should I do next? What topic should I choose? How should I structure this? How do I write this chapter? How do I publish it? And eventually, the process becomes exhausting. That's why so many projects die before they're finished. Not because they're bad ideas, because there's no roadmap. And when there's no roadmap, people get lost. But when you have a clear process, something powerful happens. Progress becomes predictable. Instead of trying to figure out everything at once, you focus on one step, then the next, until suddenly, what felt impossible starts feeling manageable. This is exactly why successful creators move faster than everyone else. Not because they're smarter, not because they work harder, because they've removed unnecessary decisions. They've turned complexity into a repeatable process. And that's where AI becomes truly powerful. Not when it's used randomly, but when it's plugged into a structured system. A system that guides every stage of creation, from idea to outline to characters to chapters to final publication. Because when AI and systems work together, the entire game changes. And that's when publishing stops feeling like a massive mountain and starts feeling like a series of small achievable steps. But here's where things get really interesting, because publishing a book isn't actually the biggest opportunity. The biggest opportunity is what happens after the book is finished. And most people never even think about it. In the next part, we're going to talk about digital assets and why they may be one of the most overlooked wealth-building opportunities of the modern internet. Take a look around. Most people spend their entire lives working for money. They wake up, go to work, get paid, repeat, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's one problem. The moment they stop working, the income stops too. Their time is directly connected to their earnings. No work, no income. And that's exactly why so many people feel stuck. Because there are only 24 hours in a day. You can work harder, you can work longer, but eventually, you hit a limit. Now compare that to someone building digital assets. Instead of only selling time, they're creating things that can continue existing long after they're finished. A book, a digital product, a software tool, a course, a template, an audience. These are assets, and assets behave differently than jobs because assets can scale. One book can be purchased by one person, or 1,000 people, or 10,000 people, without you needing to recreate it every time. That's a completely different game, and once you understand that, you start seeing the internet differently. Suddenly, you're no longer asking, how can I make money? You're asking, how can I build assets? And that question changes everything, because the people creating wealth online aren't always chasing the newest trend. They're building things that can compound over time. Think about your favorite YouTube creator. One video can continue getting views years after it was uploaded. Think about software companies. One product can continue generating revenue long after it was built. Think about authors. One book can continue reaching readers around the world. That's the power of leverage. And leverage is one of the most important concepts most people never learn. The average person trades hours for dollars. The creator builds assets that multiply the value of those hours. Now, does this mean every book becomes successful? Of course not. Does every digital product make money? No. Does every creator win? Absolutely not. But that's not the point. The point is that creators give themselves a chance. Consumers don't. Most people spend years watching opportunities. A small percentage spend years building them. And over time, that difference becomes enormous. Which brings us to the biggest opportunity created by AI. Because for the first time in history, the barrier to creating digital assets has become dramatically lower. You no longer need a giant team. You no longer need years of experience. You no longer need to do everything manually. Today, individuals can build faster than ever before, but only if they have the right process. And that's where many creators are quietly gaining an advantage. They're not just using AI, they're using structured systems that guide the entire journey from idea to finished asset. And one particular publishing niche has been attracting attention because of how well these systems fit into the process. We'll talk about that next, because this is where things start becoming very practical. So let's put everything together. We've talked about why most people never start. We've talked about how AI changed the game. We've talked about why systems beat talent. And we've talked about the power of digital assets. Now comes the question that really matters. What do you actually do with this information? Because knowledge alone changes nothing. Action does. And right now, we're living through one of the most unusual periods in internet history. For decades, creating a book required months of work. sometimes years. Today, the process can be dramatically faster, not because quality no longer matters, but because technology has removed many of the bottlenecks that used to stop people from ever getting started. And that's exactly why some creators are moving into specific publishing niches that work especially well with structured AI-assisted workflows. One of those niches is cozy fantasy, a genre that has quietly developed a passionate audience. Readers love the comforting stories, the memorable characters, the relaxing adventures, and unlike many highly competitive markets, there are still opportunities for creators willing to learn the process correctly. But here's something important. The successful people in this space aren't simply asking AI to write a book. They're following systems. They have frameworks, checklists, workflows, processes that guide them from an idea to a finished manuscript to a published digital asset. And that's the difference. Because the goal isn't to create random content. The goal is to create something readers actually enjoy. Something worth publishing, something worth building. Now, if you're curious about how creators are using AI-assisted publishing systems to speed up that process, I've placed a resource in the description below. It's a training and workflow system that shows how people are approaching AI-assisted cozy fiction publishing today. Take a look if you want to explore the process further. But remember this, don't buy anything expecting magic. Don't expect overnight success, and don't expect a tool to do all the work for you. Because the real advantage has never been the tool. The real advantage is understanding the system. Before you leave, think about this. A year from now, you could still be watching videos about opportunities, still researching, still planning, still telling yourself you'll start later. Or you could be looking back at something you've actually created, a book, a digital product, a business asset, something that didn't exist before you decided to build it. Most people will choose the first path. That's why most people never create anything meaningful. But if you're serious about building digital assets instead of endlessly consuming content, then subscribe to Digital Ledger. Not because it's good for the algorithm, but because every video here is designed to help you think differently about money, technology, AI, and online business. We're not here to chase shortcuts. We're here to build assets, one step at a time, one project at a time, one opportunity at a time. And if that sounds like the kind of journey you want to be part of, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. And remember, don't just consume digital content, build digital assets. I'll see you in the next one.